Welcome back. We're talking about end-of-life care options, and in the case of an emergency, there are times when a person's symptoms can result in death. But what are the life-sustaining treatments you need to consider in those cases? We're still talking with Dawn Port. Dawn, thanks for sticking with us. Yeah. So this is something that you did talk about last time, but it's certainly worth repeating because it's such important information.
Yes.
There are treatments that you can do that are life-sustaining in an emergency, but they can impact your quality of life, right? So can you talk a little bit about the benefits and the risks of some of those treatments?
Yes, you bet. And the first one I think that people are most familiar with certainly is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, that is done when a person's heart stops. So in looking at the risks and benefits of that procedure, we really need to consider what the risks are and what the benefit for that individual is, and also looking at what are the chances of a person recovering if they have this procedure done. So we know statistically if someone's heart stops out in the community, only 5% of those people survive that event. And the people that are most likely to survive are, a younger, otherwise healthy individual who will most likely survive that. And even within the hospital, if someone goes into a cardiac arrest in the hospital, only 15% of those individuals survive and are discharged from the hospital and have the quality of life that they want to have after that event. So some of the things that we think about and talk to people about when they're thinking about, do I want to have this done if I should have a cardiac arrest, is looking at what are the disease processes you're living with right now. Do you have a terminal illness that you will at some point die from anyway? Or are you living in a nursing home and have extra care needs? Or are you getting extra care at home? All of those things play into the conversation about the benefit of having this procedure done and the likelihood that you're going to survive that event. And so we look at, what are the risks? Well, we can, even in young, healthy people, we can break their ribs because the compressions are quite vigorous to try to get the heart restarted. We can puncture the lungs or even puncture the spleen. And so it is definitely not without risk, that procedure. And if someone is without oxygen for prolonged period of time, even several minutes, there could be some brain injury from that, all the way from maybe some memory issues to coma. So it's really not something that we know someone's going to survive from. Yes, we're going to do this on everyone. We have to take those things into consideration. Sure. And we have to honor people's wishes as well. What is it that they would like to have done? And if we feel that we would not necessarily recommend CPR for someone that is terminally ill and maybe close to the end of their life, we wouldn't necessarily recommend that they have that done.
Okay.
But have that conversation about why, and let them make that decision, or their families make that decision.
And so CPR is one of the life-sustaining treatments. What are some of the others?
Another one that we talk about a lot is artificial nutrition or artificial fluids, hydration, artificial hydration. And in some cases, artificial nutrition and fluids make a lot of sense. If we think that someone is going to be recovering, they're just having specific surgery that it might affect their ability to swallow, or they may have had a stroke and we anticipate that they may at some point be able to swallow on their own again without complications, then that makes absolute sense. For individuals with other disease processes like multiple sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, that's always a conversation to have with the individual. This may help sustain your life and it provide a better quality of life for you. So let's talk about doing that. For an individual who is at end stage with dementia, that may not be something that we want to do. So looking at that again. And artificial fluids may make sense, but in some cases it may add to fluid buildup in an individual's body that would cause them more suffering. So we have to talk about that. Another one would be dialysis, certainly, and looking at, filtering out all the poisons from the body that the kidney's no longer able to do, and then of course using a ventilator in the case of an individual that is having a respiratory arrest. And there's a lot of risks to being on a ventilator, and it may or may not be successful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. It is time for another break. But when we come back, hopefully you have a little better understanding about some of the options for end-of-life care. But now what? Find out how to talk about end-of-life care when we come back after these messages. Stay tuned.